Yeah, so this post over here, it got a whole bunch of traction. When it's talking about General Mike Flynn, talking about this Lutheran family service, and he'll state that the Lutheran family services and affiliated organizations receive massive amounts of taxpayer dollars. And then kind of give some numbers, and it says in the billions. If you click on that link, you can just see like the responses are, Doge them, corruption.
Doge
This
them.
is something that Elon Musk actually picked up on. He said it's rapidly shutting down these quote illegal payments that were sent to this organization. Kind of the debate, also sort of raged. It was all over the place. It sort of piqued my interest. Jesse Singal, I personally have a little bit of animus with Jesse. If you give me a second, I can sort of vent a little bit. But he is a podcast host, also Blocked and Reported. To be totally fair, some of our podcast was like somewhat inspired, at least the format, by them. I used to be a paying subscriber. Now I do not pay. I actually don't listen at all.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, I like Singal. He he
What
is he was, I don't know, very level headed, and I considered him to be an independent thinker. So like he arrives at his own conclusions, which often means that they're very kind of unpredictable. So it's sort of interesting to listen to him to get his take on something. I wouldn't say that he aligns with a set of off the shelf beliefs that some people have, like some sort of turnkey beliefs that people just subscribe to. That is, unless it has to do with Elon Musk. And he is just so predictably critical of everything. Singal thinks that
no matter what
Elon's an idiot, doesn't know politics, international systems work.
Right.
He's made X a total hellhole. Elon should just stay in his lane. Doesn't know international politics.
And what lane is
whatever
that?
it is.
Rockets, cars, tunnels,
business,
social media, government now. Like I don't think there's a lane that you can't navigate.
I mean, if there's a Trump derangement syndrome, I think that's very real. But there really is also an Elon Musk derangement syndrome that's out there. The other thing that kind of annoys me is like his ex persona, I think, has gotten quite insufferable. I find it somewhat condescending. I find it a little bit of I'm smaller than thou feel. The other thing on X, which he does that kind of annoys me, is when he'll make a statement or something, and if you go through his replies, you can find some pretty well articulated arguments, but he doesn't respond to those, or he doesn't like repost and respond to them. He'll just find the craziest ones and then respond, and then like later complain how terrible X has gotten, which kind of bugs me. Anyway, that's why he's so prominent here.
I understand it. Then you would reach the same conclusion.
It's just, like this one, for instance. Yes, Congress passed a law appropriating these funds. And it's like, I think he's just taking that on faith. And like, I think it's true.
Yeah.
But I think he's like intentionally kind of missing the point of this whole debate. And that's kind of what prompted me to kind of look into this. And that's what I want to share with you. Today. So these are kind of the questions I had. Were these illegal payments? Were they appropriated by Congress? And I think that's true, but it kind of led me to the second one, which was, at what level does Congress appropriate funds? So what I mean by that is, is there an appropriations bill that actually names this organization and we have to give them X amount? Probably not. Or is it at a much higher level? And then like, at what level? Or did they just give like departments? They're like, here you go. Here's kind of what you asked for in the budget or whatever. So that, I think, would provide a whole lot of color around this whole debate, as opposed to a bunch of people just talking past each other on X, like is usually the case. So for the first question, were these payments illegal? And there was a executive order, which was signed that ordered agencies to temporarily pause federal financial assistance programs and that are implicated by the president's, EOs. And, they went ahead and put up like a Q&A, essentially, just sort of regarding some of the EOs. I guess there are enough questions out there. And so, Were they illegal? I don't think so. Did they go against the executive order? Probably. That's probably what Elon's referring to. If he's referring to something else, I don't know it. So the second question I think is more interesting. It's like, were they appropriated by Congress and at what level? So this required.
Just real quick, what is this organization? What's it called?
So right here, the Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service is one of them.
Okay.
But it just seems to be kind of part of a broader group. Lutherans, whatever, these churches.
Is this one of the things that we stumbled across whenever we were looking into FEMA money?
Yeah, I'm glad you sort of mentioned that. I don't know if it was Lutheran, but it was a religious organization
that was
kind of helping. Yeah, exactly.
Help.
Right, exactly. And as that was just like totally random, we did that. A little while ago. And so I'm kind of some of the threads are somewhat similar here. But let's look at this specific case. So you have to do a little bit of digging. I'm starting on the USA Spending website, which I have a shortcut to because it's so useful. And you can see that they have a few, call it agreements. One is with the Department of State, one or several, I don't know how deep this goes, but they're in the system, so to speak, with the Department of State. And over here, it sort of lists what programs that they're, under which they're going to be providing these services. And they have more than just two, I think. These are just kind of two screenshots that I grabbed. But I'm more interested in this one down here. This one's with the Department of Health and Human Services. And the reason why I'm interested is because it was just a much bigger amount. And what the program which they're pointing to is the Unaccompanied Children Program. And then this number 93676. I think what this is, it's just kind of an accounting number. It's a way for them to keep track of the budgeting, kind of where money actually goes to like what program. So I think it's just an internal accounting number, but it shows up elsewhere. So let's look at a separate website. You can kind of point to the Unaccompanied Children Program, and it also has this assistance listing number, this 93676. Okay, seem to be on the right track. You can see that since 2008, I think they've spent almost $20 billion on this program, and it can show kind of a bar chart how that spending has gone. It's gone up. And then at the bottom, if you scroll down on here, and you can actually see who received these funds. And on the first page, and there are a bunch of pages, but on the very first page, you can also find this Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service. So we're on the right track, okay? But we're still, remember, what we're looking for is how did Congress appropriate these funds? So kind of the next, the way Congress works, they passed acts. And so I wanted to know, where did this program come from? Like what act? And sort of the big one here, the kind of kickstarted everything, was the Homeland Security Act of 2002, believe it or not. And that's what this is. So this is a copy of it, and it includes some of the other amendments that have been added to it over the years. And specifically in it, you can find section 462, the Children's Affairs. And what I was looking for in here really was, what office administers this, so that I can kind of start to find the other side of the thread, which was, how I suspect Congress appropriates funds, and that's by the office. If you go in, you can see that it is in the Office of Refugee Resettlement. So that's an office, and it's going to be located under the Department of Health and Human Services. So I was like, okay. So and I just kept digging.
Unaccompanied alien children.
Yeah. So now,
Roswell.
So then we go and we check out this place. So we got the Office of Refugee Resettlement. They found this thread. We're tugging on it a little bit, and on their website they have a segment, and they're devoted to this program. And you can poke around a little bit. Seem to be on the right track. They're talking about who was set up, the Homeland Security Act of 2002. They have this section again, the 462. One of the things down here, you can see the referrals, the number of referrals that they've received from the Department of Homeland Security regarding, children. And, just looking at this, it sort of aligns with what we have learned over the years with the amount of migrants. It just totally spiked in 2021 and just remained very high. So, okay. So there's that little bit of info. But now let's tie this back and try to see how this stuff is actually appropriated. So what we're looking at now is the 2024 bill, kind of the appropriations bill, and this is it. Okay, this is all the text that I could find. I didn't read the whole thing; it's like 200 pages, but I think it covers it. And it's on page 82, refugee and entrant assistance, and it says for necessary expenses for refugee and entrant assistance activities authorized by section, and then it lists a bunch of different sections of various acts. Then we have 414, Immigration Nationality Act, 501, and for carrying out section, and here it is, the 462 of the Homeland Security Act of 2002. And then there's a number. So for these, sections of the acts, we have 2,756,956,000, and it says of which, and it's a slightly smaller number, shall remain available through September 30th, 2026 for carrying out such sections. This, and then there's our 462 and the 235. So that's what it looks like. So, I thought for a second that it might be divided by the office or the department, or I didn't know kind of at what level, but it really seems to be more by the sections of the acts. That's how this stuff is appropriated.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah. So, what did we learn? What did we learn from this? Like, you would ask yourself, how is this money allocated? At what level was how I phrased it. Did they do it at the department level? So they just said, here's, $1 trillion of your department, go nuts. Did they do it sort of maybe at the office level, some other different level? Or, in this case, they do it by like an act. So they would say, in order for the president to enforce or uphold these laws, and then they cite the laws. They don't cite the department. They don't cite some office in the department. They cite the law itself, and they said, here's the money for you to enforce that. Now, they don't go any deeper. They don't say give it to the Lutheran service or whatever. Mm-hmm. They don't say give it to an NGO. They don't say start a new agency or whatever. It's just, this is it, I think. Everything after this is under the discretion. Again, I'm speaking vaguely here, of the president, though. I would love for, tell me I'm wrong in the comments, and I'd be happy to dig into this further. But I think this is very informative.
Yeah, definitely. I'm
totally
lost on this issue. Like how does the dollar amount actually flow down from Congress talking about it to
And this is what like this Doge thing has been really all about, right? And I'll get to that later. I think there's a kind of a nice cap at the end that sort of summarizes what this whole debate is. So let's just look at these questions. Were these illegal payments? I didn't think so. I think they're just kind of go against the executive order, right? But the president doesn't write a law. Illegal is a big word. Were they appropriated by Congress? So this is, Jesse's point. This was a law passed, that it was appropriated by Congress. And yes, technically, yes, right? I mean, they said, the money that went to the Lutheran Church, you can find a string that goes all the way up to that appropriations bill. But that's a long string because, at what level does the Congress appropriate funds? The answer is at a really high level, right?
Right.
Really don't tell you specifically how to enforce this stuff. They just say for, these sections of these acts that were written 50 years ago, here's $3 billion.
Right. It's like, it really makes you wonder what's the decision-making process? Like, how are the numbers divvied out in the entire budget?
I think this interaction right here really nicely captures how we're all talking past each other with all this. So this guy, he said, you're right. We shouldn't do anything about the irresponsible federal government spending its way into a death spiral. Jesse, you're an idiot. And then Jesse says, to repeat myself, fair's fair. GOP, they got all three branches. Government should write a bill. Congress should vote on it. This is democratic. This is how we do it. Unlike Elon claims what he's doing. So Ramon is talking about the irresponsible federal government spending. There's waste, fraud, and abuse in the system, and we need to wring it out first.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a good point. What Jesse's saying, yeah, that's quote unquote how it should be done. But you can just very easily see, okay, if you start to go that route, then you're going to be just like any other administration. Say you're going to cut the budget, you're going to try to do all these things, and it's dead on arrival.
I don't even think they're talking about the same thing here, though. That's what's kind of frustrating. I'm more in Ramon's camp because Jesse, if only because Jesse's position doesn't seem to believe or recognize that there could be an incredible amount of waste going on. And it's absolutely and critically needs to be fleshed out. It's possible that we don't need to cut any programs, as Jesse suggests. We just need to clean up the amount of waste or fraud that's going on. So in the case of this Lutheran institution, they're getting checks in the tens of millions to handle a fraction of these 100,000 kids that are being reported through. And it's not clear even how long they're supposed to be staying with them or whatever it is. But let's look into it really closely,
right? Yeah,
and see if they need
on the ground.
If they need hundreds of millions of dollars to do this job,
right?
Multiply that by a million. However many of these programs and NGOs and what have you that's out there. And I think that DOGE is going to find an incredible amount of waste, and that's the point. It is the, you can think about it a different way. It's like the presidents to date have been doing a terrible job, because they've been getting an incredible amount of money and they're not using it effectively. And now Trump is trying to fix that. And the way to do it, or the way that it's currently being done, is to we're going to shut off these payments and see who starts screaming, see what starts happening. I guess that's what happened at Twitter. It's the Twitter playbook. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. The last bit that I would want to mention here has to do with, you'd hear you would see kind of posted around, part of the discussion has to do with the idea of the president impounding funds. So what that means, I guess, back in the Nixon era, he disagreed with some of the spending that Congress was appropriating, and he just didn't spend it. He impounded the funds. And Congress didn't really appreciate that too much. So they passed another bill called the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974. That sort of limited the president's ability to do that. And this is something that has been popped up a lot in the X debates, I guess more broadly the debates, saying that the president has to spend this money. It's illegal. He can't just not spend it. And that didn't totally ring true to me. It just seems kind of crazy to say that, in the Lutheran example and the children coming over, what if there wasn't 100,000 kids? What if there were no kids? What are they going to spend it on? Do they have to spend it? What does that even mean?
Yeah. Seems like a mindset that's just kind of just inviting fraud and just asking for it. 2.7 billion. Here you go. Not on the ground. How much do we need? We only need 1.7 across these 20 different institutions, but we can hire more people now. We can do this or that, or, I don't know how blatant, if at all, things like that occur, but just that mindset, it seems like it's more than easy to do something like that.
Right. So I wanted to look into this act and see if that was really the whole story. And there's actually something that the president can do. And there are two things. There's a rescission and there's a deferral, I guess, that the president can do. And rescission, so deferral, you push it off. Rescission just means you ask Congress to get rid of it. And this is what he would have. This is the president, according to the same bill that people have been citing and saying that, he has to spend it. What he could do is just write a special message back to Congress that specifies the following bits of information and essentially asks Congress to cancel out this spending. He says, you basically just got to tell Congress how much, right? The amount that you want the proposal to be rescinded, which departments are going to be affected, the reason. So I guess in our case, it would be waste, fraud, abuse, or, you can imagine, look, there aren't any kids there. Well, whatever it is, the president has to write the maximum extent practicable, the estimated fiscal, economic, and budgetary effect. So you could say like, oh, well, the fraudsters. And again, I don't mean to say that. So, just to be clear, I don't think the Lutheran service or whatever is a fraud or anything. I'm just saying as an example, more broadly, if there are fraudsters.
Fraud or just general waste,
general waste, whatever it is. Abuse are the kind of three words: waste, fraud, abuse, or what you see bouncing around. And then you put forward, then you write them the facts. So that's kind of the work that Doge is doing right now. And then Congress has 45 days to pass a bill that if they agree with it, will rescind the funds. And I don't know, man. That seems like a good game plan. I would be totally on board with that. I mean, if Doge just went department by department and did that, and like every month or 2 months or something, Congress was getting like one of these special messages, being like, cut this amount because it's all fraud or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Like it. Ideally, if you can,
you don't need to write a bill to cut programs. Okay. Yeah. You need to ask Congress to give you less money because it's being, used improperly.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a relatively straightforward thing, but like, I wonder how many members of Congress would just be against cutting any spending.
Yeah.
Just because.
That's why you have to do this. That's the other thing.
Districts, but
that's the other thing. You gotta make this. You gotta make you can start with some of the most egregious examples, but you have to make it transparent. You got to get the public on your side, and I think they know that, and they've been doing that.
That's right. Yeah,
and they said the Lincoln or whatever. I don't know. The All In podcast kind of pulled a quote about this that I listened, but if you have public sentiments on your side, then anything's possible.
That's right.
And like right now, they absolutely do, and they have to move very quickly. The fact that Doge was given a deadline of 2026 kind of made me, have some questions about it. I don't know what the game plan is, but this to me seems like the right way to go. Keep the momentum.
2026, it's America's 250th birthday, right?
Yeah, I know that's why, but that might not be the most politically viable. It's certainly a romantic date.
I mean, hey,
we got to get this thing.
Public opinion, right?
Yeah,
it's all marketing.
All right, dude. But that's all I had. I thought that was interesting. I'm glad. I was kind of wondering about this, so got to get a little bit more color there.
Do you know if Elon has given any indication as to like the process in which he wants to cut spending? Is this like a well-known route, or is this something that you were kind of digging into?
So he didn't mention.
He might say it, we might not.
He didn't mention this part of it. I've sort of relayed what I've heard. So they started a DOGECast, or they're going to hold a Spaces. I don't know how frequently, maybe once a week or something, that updates everyone on what the Doge has been doing. And I listened to one of them. I don't know how many there are so far. And I don't know. He was talking to a senator, and the senator, I think, was doing most of the talking, as she was very interested in, she has been very interested in cutting spending for a long time. And I guess recently what he's kind of been going on the biggest craze about is USAID. That's really what he's been rallying against. So maybe that's the first thing in the crosshairs.
Right. And that's really a big
this is
public opinion thing I think he's playing on there.
Yeah. He called it, just a ball of worms. And if there's just a ball of worms, you just got to get rid of it. There's not even an apple. There's no apple there anymore. If there's like an apple with one worm, maybe you can salvage the apple.
Pluck it out, yeah.
But here it's just a ball of worms. So,
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how Elon's doing this because he's definitely fighting on all these different fronts. He's doing the actual work, digging into determining what's actually happening and, getting into the nitty gritty like that. But he's also playing that public game. Like I
Yeah.
saw one of the memes he posted the other day was that old like Velociraptor one where it looks like the dinosaur's thinking, and it says like, what other countries in the world tax their people to send money to the U.S.?
Oh yeah.
So that's like the big. I mean, that's what everyone thinks nowadays, and the U.S. certainly does send a lot of money abroad, and I think the public's getting a little fed up with it.
Well, the most egregious part of U.S. aid, at least from the meeting that they had on it, had seemed to be that when the senator, a sitting senator, sort of asked the question of like, where are you spending this money? She just got stonewalled, just like repeatedly stonewalled. I said, I'm sorry, we can't share that with you, or
It's
like
a secret,
it's a secret. Go into this room. You can't take notes. You're going to be under,
right?
it takes just months dragging your feet. It's just something's not right. Um,
And
so
that's like another issue in federal government as well, right? Like overclassification of documents and actions.
the
And that
way
seems like
he's
a very easy thing to hide behind.
yeah the way that, and another thing they mentioned on it had to do, they categorized the bureaucracy as it's separate, as a fourth and potentially the most powerful branch of government. It is impenetrable, right? So Congress, a sitting congresswoman could not penetrate it.
Yeah, I think
The
that's
president now is trying to.
Kafkaesque is probably the most literal description of it.
Yeah. So, we'll see, man. But I think this is something I'm super passionate about. I think this is the most important
Yeah.
thing facing America today. It's just getting the spending under control so
Hmm.
that aren't running these deficits, which is, I think, the biggest threat to America. If America has credible financial capacity, then I think it is powerful. If it does not, then it is not powerful.
Yeah, certainly.
So anyway, all right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Lots of important stuff here.
Yeah.
We'll be
See you
following
next time.
closely.
Yeah.
We'll see you then.
Yep. On the Root of All Evil podcast. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.